Okay, it being 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. In order to participate remotely from a computer, please use the link below to join the public meeting webinar, https://zoom.us/1/4611842225. From a telephone, dial 640-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 461-184-225, number sign. No participant ID is needed, just press number when asked. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. Are there any citizens' concerns? Okay.
Mark, can you open up that caller, please?
Hi, everybody. This is Tara from West Acton. Thank you very much for your response. I just wanted to tell you that I'm really excited about the mailing, the paper mailing to everybody, the message boards. I think that the response for education has been fantastic. I did want to mention that the Narra Park poster that was uploaded onto DocuShare, it doesn't say what social distancing is. A lot of the signs that we've been seeing in cities are telling people like what it is and what it means. Either way, I'm very excited about that, and I would like to know, if possible, has the response been good on the hotline? Are people calling in? Are people responding well to the town web pages and stuff like that? Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Looks like there are no other citizen participants that are looking to speak.
Okay, then, do you have an update for us, John?
Yes, thank you. I have several updates. First, I'd like to mention that today, March 31st, is Deputy Fire Chief Bob Vanderhoof's last day. He's retiring today as the Deputy Fire Chief. He's had a great career here, and he's been an institution for us as the organization, and really going to miss his service. We weren't able to send him off the way we normally would have, given what we're dealing with, but I hope that there'll be an opportunity to do that soon. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that. With regard to the operations update, we've been continuing to work with our local officials and our state officials and federal officials and community partners. Just a few things since our last meeting. The letter that was mentioned earlier is going to the printer tonight and hopefully will be out by the end of the week. We are posting it online and distributing it digitally in the meantime. So look out for that in your
That's the Board of Health letter.
The Board of Health, yeah. So the Board of Health last night approved as to form the letter that they asked us to send out, and we're sending it to every single household, not just every owner. We're sending it to every household. So we expect it to get good coverage. In that is some very good information that the Board of Health put together about how to handle situations if you're experiencing symptoms. And we also took the opportunity to mention a few things that are relevant generally, such as the town election and the town meeting. So that'll be going out soon. We've been working to boost our inventory of PPE. We have PPE right now, but we expect that we'll need a lot more, and we're doing everything we can to acquire more. We've had some donations, which we're thankful for. And we're finding different ways to acquire these materials and hope that the state and federal resources will be shared with us more soon. One thing that we've been talking about with Corey at the Public Works and the transfer station is that people are generally doing an okay job of social distancing when they go to the transfer station, and Saturdays aren't as busy as they used to be because people are finding time during their other parts of the week to go. But they still want to make a few changes over there to try to reinforce best practices and also provide a dedicated hour for seniors. So I think grocery stores and a few other places are doing that, or are required to do that. So what we're proposing to do is, right now, I think we're open starting at 8 o'clock every day, or most days. I think what we're looking to do is start every day, Tuesday to Saturday, which are the days that are open at 7 a.m. and have that first hour of the day be dedicated for seniors. And then as a result of the realigning of hours, we want to keep the facility open until 3 o'clock every day. Right now, I think it's open a little later on Saturdays, but we think that this change will rebalance the use of the facility in a way that allows us to continue to keep people separate. We're also limiting certain services like mattress drop-off and in-hand transactions that you can usually do there. The swap shop is not going to be open anytime soon, and other things we're going to limit just to try to keep people safer. But I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned to this board that the transfer station hours have probably been in place for decades, so I want to make sure that there aren't any concerns about this temporary change right now that we're talking about doing.
So it'll be open from 7 to 3?
Tuesday to Saturday. Each day, Tuesday to Saturday, 7 to 3. Whereas right now, there's a kind of a fluctuation, and I think it opens at 8 some days and stays open until 4:30 on Saturdays. We're looking to just do 7 to 3 every day, Tuesday to Saturday, and set that first hour aside for seniors. Just want to make sure that people are comfortable with that, or any objections or concerns. Other things that...
So the poor seniors will have to rush to the grocery store and the transfer station.
Well, hopefully you won't need to go shopping and go to the transfer station every day. Hopefully there's days that you can choose which activity you need to do. But yes, we're just trying to find ways to do it. I think seniors are welcome anytime, but this is a time where we're going to try to limit it to seniors only if people want that level of space from others. We're also working on something that the president signed, a new Families First Coronavirus Response Act. He signed it earlier this month, and it creates a few new programs that all employers, particularly those with less than 500 like us, have to implement into our workforce, into our operations. So Mary Ann Flechter's done a great job working with our Labor Council and her other colleagues in understanding how to apply this to our organization. The rules come into effect tomorrow, April 1st, and so we're going to try to finalize our approach to this, by the end of the day tomorrow. But just generally, it provides for 2 weeks or 80 hours of paid sick leave related to coronavirus or certain other eligible conditions, and it also, in some cases, would allow for a certain amount of sick time for people that need to care for others. And there's a whole separate provision that allows for an extension to Family Medical Leave Act for a paid version of extended leave for up to 10 weeks associated with a coronavirus situation. So it's pretty detailed. I did provide the board a memo about it earlier in the week in draft form. We're finalizing that tomorrow. One of the bigger questions that we've been working on is how to handle certain employees that we have. The Act itself allowed for exemptions for public safety and healthcare providers, of which we have both of those, or all of those. So we're trying to determine if it makes sense for us to do that here. We've been talking with other communities, everyone's sort of in the same place. We're all figuring it out right now as we speak. So I don't know, not that too many that have made that decision yet, but it's one that I think I'm going to work with the chiefs and others on to come up with what we think is best for our staff here. I just wanted to raise that with all of you if you had anything that you've heard or you're concerned about that or any other parts of that. You have an opportunity to share your input before we make the decision tomorrow. And Marianne is in the building. I asked her not to come up, but she's in the building if we have any questions for her as well. And so we can get back to that if you'd like, but I'll just keep going through other updates. We've had a few committees asked to meet. Your new policy that you adopted last week asked that you have to approve, the board has to approve any of these committees meeting during this state of emergency. The list of those committees includes the Commission on Disability, the Historical Commission, right? Historical Commission, and the third is the Affordable Housing Corporation. So those are three groups that want to meet this month, or in April, I guess I should say. And their understanding is that they needed to ask permission of this board. So that's before you to consider tonight. And the other thing is that we've been working very closely with a lot of residents and also a lot of businesses. Some of our small businesses in particular have had questions about how these new rules at the state and federal level apply to them. And so we've been working with them very closely, and we'll continue to do so as new rules continue to be rolled out. We found out today that the governor has extended the non-essential business closure and the stay-at-home advisory up until May 4th, which aligns with the school closing date. So that's something that we're going to continue to communicate with our business community. There are several restaurants that remain open for takeout, and we're doing our best to try to help them keep business going. We have partnered with Middlesex, with John Kerr and his group to run, we have that collaboration on Acton Restaurant Week, and we've used that site and resource to help advertise businesses that are open for takeout right now. So, and we're going to do some social media work to try to help these small businesses have people know that they're still open.
John, one of the things that Dean raised was this whole issue of drive-up for the pharmacies and some of the restaurants, because the McDonald's on 2A is closed because it doesn't have a drive-up window. So we should work with the planning board, because this may not be the only time we have a situation like this.
Yes, so that was an issue, one of two issues raised last week that I think we'd like to talk to you more about as things settle down. But if there's any immediate actions that you'd like us to try to pursue, we can do that. I don't know what those might be, but we can certainly look into it. We've also started talking with our rec team. As you know, we have a great program at the rec division with summer concerts and the 4th of July and all these great things that we've been planning now for several months. So we're not at the point now where we need to start making major changes, but we're closely monitoring that situation, and we'll keep you abreast of any changes that we think we need to make. As was mentioned, last night the Board of Health asked us to do a little bit more to try to encourage people to social distance at Narrow Park. So we did several things today, moving picnic tables out of use areas and using yellow caution tape and posting signs and doing all kinds of things at Narrow Park, including the notice that we posted online today, to try to help people really understand that this is serious, and that when we say you shouldn't congregate and you need to social distance, that means everywhere, even our beloved Narrow Park. So that happened this week, or today rather. The team, last night the Board of Health said it, and today they all jumped into action, Natural Resources, Public Works, and they really did a great job to implement that directive very quickly. The Medical Reserve Corps is something that is It's a group that is organized by our health department, and they're recruiting volunteers to help out with shelters and other things that need to happen related to emergency situations. So there's information at the website. I've also added it in this memo here. And then on communications, we've continued to do what we can to build out our infrastructure to keep everybody informed on what's happening at the local level and try to point them in the right direction to all the things that are happening at the state level. We've done the website, the social media, the FM radio, which we're live on right now. Thank you. WAEM 94.9 FM, broadcasting the Board of Selectmen meeting currently, and updates and recorded PSAs throughout the day. We've had a few live call-in programs that we're going to try to do again this week. And we established a new hotline, 978-929-6619. This hotline is intended to be a resource for residents who have questions. Initially, it's just a phone tree that allows people to hear a current recording of an update and have a direct link to nursing or the Board of Health. But we're working on some staffing plans to get people to staff it live in the coming days to provide in-person customer service. So we hope to have that built out by the end of the week. And we've used our messaging boards that the Public Works Department owns and put them in a few places just as another way to talk to people and have them understand some of the things that we're trying to communicate with them. So that's today, and we've had a great support from our state partners. The Lieutenant Governor has hosted a weekly call with all managers and mayors across the state, and there's been several other groups that have really been helping to collaborate and keep information flowing. So it's moving very quickly, but we're doing our best to keep up with it. So
I think you're doing a great job, John. Any questions? Dean?
Yes, John. I know we've got full complement working with the police, fire, nursing, public works, and I know that you've got staff here at Town Hall working and some working remotely. But do you have a cadre of employees that really don't have any duties at all and are not working and are not here throughout the organization?
There are, all the office staff that works in this building is working, and mostly remotely. Some of the work that they're doing is slightly different than normal, but we're keeping everybody busy. There are other departments where the people, the nature of their jobs, they just can't simply do them remotely, and we're finding other things for them to do to help us out with. So that's something that we're evaluating, and now that it's looking more of a long-term, months instead of weeks, we're going to continue to look at that, and any situations that we need to address, we certainly will.
I just think it's important from a morale point of view that for those that are basically doing the same job under extreme conditions now, that they realize that there's not a group of people out there, employees, that are basically staying home and doing nothing. So I think it's really important to make sure that so long as we're paying people, that we're actually getting value from them, whether they're working remotely or whether they're doing some non-traditional assignments or something. From my years working for the town, it was always a bit annoying on the public works side that you'd have a snow day and everybody from Public Works had to continue working under those conditions, and everybody in Town Hall got to go home, and we all got the same paycheck at the end of the week. So I think it's important to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen, especially since it's going to stretch out for at least another month, to make sure that the people that are working don't feel that they're getting a raw deal. Thank you.
Any other? Peter?
On this families first thing, let me ask some questions about the public safety and the medical staff. Is that a decision for both of those categories? I'm trying to keep up with this stuff. I thought medical personnel were automatically exempt, but I'm not sure about that.
Our understanding is that there isn't a ton of prescriptive instructions, but our understanding is that we may exempt either
Okay.
or both of those categories.
Okay, so what that provides is 80 hours of paid leave for, and kind of the pay is capped, but for people who are diagnosed, told, or because they've been in contact with somebody who was diagnosed, told to quarantine for 2 weeks, or have to take care of somebody who is quarantined or diagnosed. I mean, in those circumstances, you would still have to let people take that time off, I'm assuming. I mean, maybe they wouldn't have this special leave, but they'd have to use their own sick time. You're not going to make emergency people come to work when they're ill.
Yes, that's certainly true. We don't want anybody coming to work when they're sick, absolutely. And we've already put that in place.
Okay, so then the real issue becomes, the other category is if the schools are closed and you have to be home to take care of your children, then you're eligible for these leaves also. So I don't know how many employees that might affect. Have you had any input from the employees or any discussions with the employees about what decision you might want to make?
We're talking with several employees. A lot of them have concerns about the whole thing in general. We haven't had specific conversations about the points in this program because we've been literally just understanding ourselves up until today or yesterday. So, but that's part of the outreach we're going to do in the next 24 hours as we get to a point where I have to make the decision. It's something that I want the board's input on, but it's something that I'm going to have to do tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm sure starting tomorrow, there'll be requests from non-public safety employees to take this time to care for their children. I think the act actually says can't work or telework. So you may have to get into the weeds on some of these decisions. Good question. If you have a 15-year-old at home, and you need to, is that going to prevent you from teleworking? I mean, things are moving fast, and these, usually regulations would be issued. They haven't even had time to do that, so people are just learning on the fly here. The private employers get to collect back the money they have to pay for this extended leave by not paying their federal taxes, basically. They get a tax credit to reimburse them. Obviously, we don't pay any taxes. Have you heard of any funds to kind of reimburse the towns for these costs?
So that's one of the things that's been difficult to understand is we don't pay taxes, so how could we possibly benefit from a tax credit? But we're still reviewing that and whether there's other programs that would be applied to our liability in this case. So that's something that we're actively working on.
Okay. Just for people's general information, if people aren't aware yet of the massive amounts of money that the federal government is pumping out, $2 trillion, the second or third, I guess it was the third act that was passed called the CARES Act, has a thing called the Payroll Protection Plan where basically all the small businesses, as long as they keep paying their employees, even if they're shut down, will get 2 months of pay, including rent, mortgages, health insurance. The way it works is you borrow from the Small Business Association loan. As long as you use the money for the eligible costs, they're going to waive 2 months worth of costs. So that's just going to be through local banks. Mnuchin is saying he's trying to get that up and running very quickly. People are going to get these $1,200 payments, depending on the size of your family and your income. People who aren't aware of those programs, for the payroll protection program, I would recommend small business owners just go talk to their local bank, because that's where the funds will be funneled through. But that's just general information that I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, but there's an awful lot of assistance available for people, including increased food stamps, Medicaid, all kinds of stuff. So,
David, did you have something?
Yeah, I just have two quick comments and then a question. Thank you for working to set up the Restaurant Week site with the currently open restaurants. We've used that already. It's been very, very helpful. And I found that the restaurants that I visited, they've all done it in a different way for keeping separation. You know, some of them have a pickup table that's away from any employees, and your bag is just sitting there, and you just come in and touch your bag, and you paid ahead by credit card. Others have other mechanisms. They've all done a great job. And as switching gears a little bit, at yesterday's Board of Health meeting, in their original draft of their most recent order, they had proposed to close conservation lands in addition to parks. The feedback from the public in that meeting was against doing that, and I'm also against doing that. I don't see any reason to close the conservation lands any more than we would close the sidewalks. I've been hiking on the conservation lands a lot. People are very polite. You know, one group or another steps off the trail, lets the other, family group. Typically, it's a parent and a couple of kids, or a couple or something walking along, and one group will step off the trail and the others go by. And there's nothing to touch on the trail. There's no picnic tables to leave the virus on or anything else. I hope we continue to leave the conservation lands open. People, I think we're going to be going through this for some months, and people need a way to get out and be outside. And the last question relates to the time off thing. The governor, when he first closed child care centers, said that there was going to be a program for child care for first responders and healthcare workers. I was wondering, John, if you had heard any more about that?
And that's one of the things that we understand to be in case that there are exemptions for people to get child care. I don't know the details for how one might do that. So Mary Ann, who is available, she has her hand raised. She, I think, can maybe speak to that, and Mr. Barry's question earlier about the tax credit and how we could potentially address that. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay, Mary Ann, you out there?
I don't have access to allow her to speak. So,
Mary Ann? Human Resources Director Mary Ann Fleckner will be joining us momentarily.
she just has to be unmuted.
Mark, can you unmute Mary Ann? Please. Are there any other questions while we're working on that?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, to John's point about the Family First Coronavirus Response Act and the question on the exemptions for healthcare providers and/or the first responders, we have received some correspondence from Lisa Adams. She's the legislative director for the MMA. She's been very helpful. And so she was commenting, if the federal government decides to exempt municipalities from the payroll tax to cover the cost of this paid sick leave under this new law, or even if there are federal stimulus funds that could be used to cover the cost of this paid sick leave, that we should consider that when making the decisions of the exemptions, and also to the question that just came up about the child care, is that, as we may know, one of Governor Baker's executive orders included keeping child care centers open for public safety personnel. And so if a public safety personnel is eligible for that, we want to make sure that we're not making them ineligible under this new expanded FMLA section of this new law. So that a requirement that the employee doesn't have access to childcare, it doesn't exclude them from this act. So it is a lot in motion, but we're very confident where we are as of tonight. The town itself, with how we have interpreted it and how we have been prepared to roll this out. And as John said, just the remaining questions about the exemption, we feel confident that with this information, we can make a good decision and go forward and inform the employees.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful. The president also responded to the governor's request to declare a state of emergency in Massachusetts. By doing that, that frees up a lot of funds for emergency assistance, I think, including to municipalities for costs related to the emergency. The MMA, I think, was suggesting that you make sure you keep track of all kinds of costs that might be eligible for grants under the emergency programs. So that's another source of funding. I think there is money in some of these bills for assistance to local cities and towns, but I haven't been able to find out yet exactly how much or what it's for. Just following up on the issue of closing of the conservation lands, my understanding from listening to the Board of Health meeting last night was they asked Cheryl to speak with the town staff, the town manager, and come back on Thursday night with more information. What are you hearing from the recreation, natural resources people about what's happening? They were particularly concerned about Narra Park, I think, last night.
Yeah, our staff has been monitoring the situation over there, and there were several cars parked there over the weekend, or the nice day of the weekend. But for the most part, people appeared to be using the walking trails, and with some exceptions, people were generally distancing themselves, but as a precaution and just to make sure that as the weather continues to get nicer, to make it more clear to the public, we took some measures today to make it harder to congregate at Narra Park. They suggested we close off parking. We have about 200 parking spaces there. I believe we did some things today to limit some of that parking. I haven't seen the final result on what they did, but that we're going to be prepared to present that Thursday night to the Board of Health for what we've done and if we think it's enough.
Okay, thanks. I don't know why they seem at one point to be saying maybe they keep the, basically the trail, the walking trail and the bike path open, but close the rest of the park. So I don't know whether there were people playing soccer or what was sitting at the picnic tables they were talking about, but targeted things like that might make some sense if that helps. But I agree that keeping the walking trails in the conservation land and the bike paths open is very important for people's mental health as we go through this crisis.
David?
Yes, just a very quick response. Yes, I understand that some people at NARA at one point were violating the physical distancing recommendations. But as far as I've been aware, and I've asked people and no one's been able to cite an example, there are no violations like that at the other recreation areas. So I think we just need to correct where the problem is and not where the problem isn't.
Yeah, as I understand it, the town today closed down the picnic pavilion and all the picnic tables at NARA, so that addressed one of the Board of Health's concerns. They're particularly concerned about hard surfaces, which apparently the virus lives on.
Anything else?
I suppose this is the time to bring it up, but I want to have a discussion about our meetings. My wife is particularly concerned about me coming and meeting in person. Several of us are in the vulnerable age group. I think the Board of Health is setting a sterling example by having remote meetings. I think it works great. I watched it last night. It seems to be working very, very well. You can hear everybody. You can see everybody who's speaking. And I don't know about the technical aspects of that. We should talk about that some more. But I agree with David that to the extent we're requiring every other board and the governor's directive encourages people to meet remotely, I think we set a better example by meeting remotely than in person without jeopardizing our own health.
I agree. I've gotten some small amounts of feedback from the public that we should be, why are we meeting together? And I explained that we're 6 feet apart, but still, you know, and we're accepted so we can if we want to, but that doesn't mean we have to. You know, I think it's, you know, practice what you preach. We're making all, you know, the other committees meet remotely. I think we should as well. And I'm happy to help practice virtual meetings offline with people if people need practice, or to make sure their computers work or whatever. That can be done remotely as well, or whatever.
John?
Yeah, the reason why I stress that we, you know, should meet in person and on television is that many people, you know, do watch, and I thought they should all see us together, you know, as the leadership team, you know, front and center. But if there's a really strong sense from home or people have given me, you know, mixed reactions. I'm saying you should be, you know, doing it via, you know, Zoom and, you know, remote communication. There's no need for you to risk yourself. And so if that's this, you know, the sense from David and Peter, I would, you know, join in the request that we, you know, meet remotely, but I will need your help.
I'm sure that we can figure that out.
Okay.
I'm happy to practice in an afternoon or whatever. I think we need to develop our own kind of procedures for this. You know, Dean, I think we might need to have every vote be a roll call vote. You know, that kind of thing. I mean, I think we're supposed to do that, you know, in the old open meeting law rules. And so it just, you know, from observing the Board of Health, I think that would be easier to have roll calls, because it's not possible to differentiate really when people yell aye with how many there are.
Easy if we meet remotely for people who would normally watch on either cable or on the YouTube station to follow the meetings live?
I believe that we can do both, right? In fact, if you look at the attendee list, it's not on this one. On the Board of Health meeting, Acton TV is an attendee, and so they basically broadcast what comes over Zoom.
Dean?
Yeah, my preference always is to meet in person, but I understand the concerns, and you know, I'm willing to go to remote. I think it's probably a good idea, and it's not going to be forever, hopefully. You know, we're probably dealing with this for 2 months of virtual meetings, and I'd be in favor of that.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You want
Peter.
to speak? I just want to ask a little more question about the technology. You know, for particularly older people might not even have computers, or some a lot of people, I suppose, in town don't use computers. You're saying you can use a TV? Well, YouTube is on a computer. Can you use a TV?
You can use the combination, if it's broadcast on YouTube or Acton TV, you can use the TV and a phone. The only thing you can't do with the TV and a phone, you can also just use an iPad, which works fine. In all those three cases, though, the only things you can't do are things like share your screen, right? Which you might not be doing anyway if you're new to the technology. So either I can or the technology staff can, if we need to put something up on the screen, we can, a slideshow for something. We can manage to do that, and you guys don't have to do that.
Okay, so if you don't have a smart TV or an iPad or a computer, you can watch on channel 99 if you have Comcast. Is that what?
Right,
I'm sorry. Okay, Johnson.
or you use a computer kind of like a TV, right? So you use a computer muted, just watching the Acton TV stream or the YouTube stream.
Yeah, I'm saying you don't have a computer. All you
right.
got is an old-fashioned TV.
Right. Then it would have to be on the Acton TV cable channel.
Okay.
But you
can dial in the phone and get your comments.
So I believe if anybody has a device that they use for email, it will work for this meeting, right? So if you get your email on an iPad or even a phone, a smartphone, you can do this whole meeting in a smartphone, although I get something to prop it up because it's like annoying to. But you could do the whole thing on if you have an iPad with a stand, a keyboard that folds up so it stands up, that'll work fine.
John?
We have 5 laptops we could issue to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow, if that's helpful. We have 5 laptops we could issue to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow, if that would help you. It would.
With a
you
little training?
Absolutely. Not hand-holding as we would normally, but we'll find a way to do training remotely and effectively. If you want them, you may have Surface Pros or whatever you have, but if you need that to help facilitate your participation in this meeting or any other meetings that you serve as a liaison to, we can provide that to you.
I think that might be helpful for a couple of people. Like John was saying, the microphone on one of his computers wasn't working, and so it just might be easier. We could also maybe, it doesn't matter if someone watches or whatever. We might be able to just start one of our meetings 15 minutes ahead, so that we can kind of practice. A little bit if people want to practice, or I can do one-on-one practice in an afternoon or evening with anybody who wants.
I did a Zoom call with Bob Van Meter on Monday afternoon to talk about an issue he had, and it went really well. I couldn't get it off of my PC. My son set it up on his Apple machine, and it was very good.
Okay, we'll work on this. Are there other issues related to coronavirus?
I'm sorry, no, were we going into the, I'm sorry. I had some comments, but they would seem more appropriate under the new business, continued discussion and updates. Is that?
Okay.
Did you have something, John, to finish?
No, just to reiterate the issue of the committees that I listed earlier for your consideration.
Okay, so I guess it was 3 committees: the ACHC, the Council on Disabilities, Commission on Disabilities, and the Historical Commission. So I would move that we authorize each of those committees to hold a meeting virtually and remotely.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
I just have a question for John. We held off a little bit a week and a half ago because you felt staff was under the gun on a number of other things. Are you prepared now to support these committees, or would you like us to hold off more?
I think that we can, in this manner, trickle in committees and then open the floodgates once the proven case, but I think we certainly could accommodate 3 more this week, or 3 more if that's the board's motion.
And you would just issue Zoom IDs to the chair? So the chair of each of those committees, so that they would know how to...
Yeah, it'll require our staff or a Board of Selectmen volunteer, if he's willing, to provide some training to the chair of each of these committees, but I think that's certainly something we could put together before their meet.
So I think for the normal committees like we're discussing here, they can just do a Zoom meeting, they don't need the webinar. That's way overkill, I think. That's just my opinion.
So
Okay.
the Zoom would be through the town's license?
We I think, are trying to set it up in a way that all the meetings are held under licensed accounts, but there is that unlicensed count that allows for a 45-minute meeting that may be sufficient for certain things. But we're trying to set it up so that we have a full suite of them available.
Yeah, because I was participated in a cable advisory committee meeting, and there were a bunch of tech-savvy people, and were going their own ways, and it was a little bit chaotic and choppy, to get it running right. So everybody should be encouraged to go with the town system, and that should make it run smoothly.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing Zoom with families, and it works great. So you host that? Somebody, does Mark Hall or somebody actually have to host the meeting?
Yeah, so there's different challenges. So if it's going to be broadcast live on FM radio, like the Board of Selectmen, and shown live on cable TV, then it requires some assistance from technology staff. And we have, I believe, at least Mark and maybe even Matt might be helping tonight, and they have been for every meeting that we've held in this manner. If it's a meeting that doesn't require broadcast or showing on Acton TV, it's a simpler process.
Thank you for reminding me of that. So as we've been going live with the meetings on Zoom for the other stations, it requires an expensive update to the other software in order to be able to go live through cable with that. So what we've done is we've posted a link to where you can see the meetings, and then we're still airing them. We just can't go out live through the connection with our current technology. And I was just started communicating with someone back there, and I just thought I should give that update. You can go live through the radio, you said?
So we're live right now on the radio, and I believe we're live on Acton TV right now?
Yeah, you're live on Acton TV at the moment.
Right, okay. So I think the challenge comes in for the several other committees that we don't typically broadcast live.
Right.
And it's a simpler setup, and I think it's something that the chair of that committee or a volunteer on that committee or some other staff person can help support that meeting without the different coordination that has to occur for a meeting like this.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and it's just a matter, by the way, we're still, we have Zoom meetings going out over the air on cable. They're just not going out live that way. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so there might be a challenge, I'm sorry. It might be a challenge of if there's more than one committee meets on the same night, could be an issue. I just, another comment quickly. So now we've authorized the planning board, was it the CONSCOM?
No.
And these?
The quasi-judicial bodies, CONSCOM, Planning Board, HDC.
Oh, okay, the HDC, because there was supposed to be a meeting tonight of the HDC.
ZBA, the permitting boards.
Yeah, okay. I don't think the HDC was included in that. There was supposed to be a meeting tonight because the 53 River Street Committee applied to get a permit to demolish the building on that site of 53 River Street. I think that got continued. So as we ramp this up, we ought to look at other first priority should be other boards that have statutory authority to hear and make decisions. And I think there are deadlines in the HDC's bylaw or the statute too. So as opposed to advisory committees. So that's...
David?
Yes, I just want to say that we just need to keep this two-tier thing in mind. So first of all, for the first tier, which is your average advisory committee meeting or any meeting that would not normally be broadcast. You know, the HTC meetings are not normally broadcast. You know, any meetings which are not normally broadcast, that is a real simple meeting, just started by the chair after some training. And they don't need any tech support after the initial training. The chair will start it, everybody can just join.
That's Zoom, right?
That's Zoom,
yeah.
yes. And I would propose, and I discussed this with John, I think this is the way that we could go. Each committee would have its own meeting ID, so all the committees could meet concurrently. And you would join whatever one you wanted, just the same way we have now, or used to have a month ago, that, you know, you might have 3 meetings on a Thursday, and, you know, interested parties go to the one that they're interested in. They would each have their own meeting ID. The second tier, the high tier, are the meetings that are either hearings or that we would have broadcast. Those require a webinar and then some technology. And so those will need help, right? So the ZBA hearing, when we do it, our meetings, any meetings that would be broadcast, or we expect a lot of commenters, right? Where, you know, this is the kind of meeting where people are lined up at the podium waiting to speak.
Peter?
So on the Zoom meetings then, if you're just doing it as a committee without assistance, you need a host. I mean, you can do it for 45 minutes for free, but if you want to do it for more than 45 minutes, don't you have to pay?
Right, so the town now has an account, and so we do have to pay, but we've kind of already paid. John, right at the beginning of this crisis, got the town a Zoom account. So, and that allows him a certain number of meeting IDs and that kind of thing. I would not recommend the 45-minute meetings for a lot of reasons. There are other limitations that might get us into other open meeting law problems. They're limited as to the number of attendees, the free meetings, which is fine if you want to, you know, have a meeting with your cousins, but it's not fine if it's, you know, if the limit is 10 people and 12 people want to attend, right? So I don't think we can use the free one because it's time limited and because it's number of people limited. You do need a host. I would recommend that the chair be basically the starter of the meeting. And the chair can just give the ID to the vice chair if, you know, there's a case where the chair cannot attend. And once that's started, everybody can just jump in.
Do you want to repeat your motion, John?
Yes, that the Board of Selectmen that the Board of Selectmen authorize one-time meetings for the ACHC, the Commission on Disabilities, and the Historical Commission.
Why one time?
I think that the way the guidelines appear to work was a request was made to meet. This was under section 5 of paragraph 2. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be a recurring.
Well, I'll leave it up to you to how you want your motion. From my point of view, once they start, there's no reason for them that they can't meet again, right? The Cable Advisory Committee wants to meet a second time.
Okay, well, do we have the capacity then for committees, you know, to go back to, you know, normal meetings?
I believe that we're going to be in this situation for several more months. And even afterward, we're going to have to be careful about recurrence of the virus, even if we get rid of it until such time as a vaccine is developed. So we could be in this situation for, you know, where we're able to pick up some activities, but we may not want to get together all the time. And so I think that we should just jump in here. I mean, a committee that doesn't want to, that's fine, right? If they want to hold off meetings for a few months. But for those committees that want to jump in, we should let them jump in.
Well, I think one issue we're going to have to face as the crisis, you know, continues is, you know, keeping our boards and committees, you know, active and engaged and you know, so yes, I mean, you know, let them meet. My question went to the issue of, do we have the capacity to have committees meet regularly as before?
I don't see any limitation.
Okay.
In fact, we used to have a physical limitation to make sure we had enough conference rooms. We don't have that limitation.
Well,
Again, I would...
do you want to just, we could open it up then and, you know, just permit, you know, all boards and committees.
One of the things John said a minute ago was that this slow startup helps us, right? If we turned on all 45 committees next week, we'd have a training nightmare. If there was a glitch in the system, we'd have to deal with the glitch across 45 committees, right? We started off FinCom and Cable, great. Now we want to do 3 more. Those go great. We can do 5 more, you know, and then.
Okay, but
once we start, they just let them run.
So, so you would just authorize the 3 committees before us tonight to meet whenever they want, not at one time, and then let other committees come in and they'd have to make a similar request to meet.
That would be my proposal, yes.
Okay.
So a friendly amendment, I would just strike the one time.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, is there a second, Dean? Oh, you did, all right. Okay, motion made and seconded, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Been getting some text from a constituent. Apparently, Zoom is available on computer, which is showing this meeting right now as we speak. However, what's going out on Acton TV is actually the meeting from the 24th. And it was noted particularly that some comments on what outfit you were wearing, so that how they knew this. So I think we've obviously got a glitch in trying to synchronize the 2 media.
Further discussion? Federal or state directives?
No, let me just, on number 3. I wanted to bring to the board's attention the COVID-19 impact fund that was begun by the United Way of Acton Boxborough under the leadership of their new director. I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention the COVID-19 Impact Fund that was begun by the Acton Boxborough United Way under the leadership of their executive director, Greet DeHanschutter. And it's pretty critical now, as April 1st is tomorrow, and it's the first day of the first month since the crisis began, when many local residents will be faced with rental and other, housing payments with limited financial resources and limited support systems to handle the crisis by themselves. And they're also, laid off workers, families, people who are in self-quarantine, and seniors who need support. So this fund set as a target to raise $175,000. They've gotten matching gifts from 3 anonymous individuals of up to $70,000. They're probably have raised, well, at this point, well over $30,000. And I would certainly encourage, people to the extent that they're able to go to the United Way's website and donate online. The intention is to use the money, not hand it out to individuals, directly, but to find out what bills need to be paid and pay those bills, pay the landlord directly and whoever else, to make sure that, the expenses are paid. And, as we continue, on, this is one of the, additional, factors and situations we're going to be addressing. And I would certainly get behind, this fund and urge people to spread the word and make contributions as individuals see fit.
That's what makes Acton special.
Yeah, it's been just to watch individuals, and I know in our neighborhood, Minuteman Ridge, of 83 homes, efforts are made to watch out for seniors, particularly single seniors. If someone's going to a particular store, sending out a message to you, is anybody, I could pick up something if you need it. And I think that's going on all over town. The restaurants and other shops are, making way for seniors to come in at the first hour in the morning, and where people are quite comfortable. The shelves tend to be, filled at that hour, so you're not hustling or scrambling. And I think the community has really come together. Concerns that I had were, I've encouraged, people in neighborhoods where they have their, neighborhood emails to really watch out for seniors and others that are most vulnerable. Are there parts of town that are more isolated, that you don't have neighborhood, informal neighborhood, networks that we should be watching out for? We could think about that, and but as this goes on, we're going to be facing new and and different circumstances. I know at the senior center, Sharon's crew has and the Council of Aging Board has reached out to seniors who interact, who are members, and come on board there. Whether they would like to be called once a week, several times a week, not at all.
Yeah, Marion Maxwell was putting out quite a good email almost every day.
Almost every day, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, everyone is, is pitching in with that, and I think we'll just have to, grow our networks, because there's enough work for everybody to do, and the more people we could bring on board in the effort. There's only so much government can do, and a lot of it has to, come from individuals. Whatever support we can give, that would be great.
Peter?
Yeah, I mean, there are really sad situations. We have a couple, a very older couple on our block. A husband had to go to Emerson. They transferred him to the nursing home across the street. He's failing, so he's not able to use a computer to do a Zoom interview. She couldn't visit him, and she can't contact him there. She's now bringing him back home. I mean, the churches have stepped up. They are having services on Zoom. I know South Acton Congregational has daily devotional broadcasts on Zoom, so that's a source of solace to a lot of people. I'm sure the nursing service could help out in that kind of situation, and this town social services staff is available to help people who need assistance in all of those situations. So we've got to be flexible and try to help out, come together and try to help out each other as much as we can.
Yeah, John, how are Meals on Wheels going?
They were going strong over the first few weeks. This week, we're continuing to work with Minuteman Senior Services to understand if there's some changes they may want to make. Nothing to report at this time, but we've been doing our best to get meals out to people. I think we did over 100 usually on a daily basis, and I can let you know if there's any further updates on that.
The school is also handing out lunches, aren't they? You can drive up to the school and pick up a sandwich.
Yeah, the regional school district put together a great program for a daily bagged lunch pickup. The hours are listed on the website. I think it's 11 to 1. And we have a link for updated food resources on our website as well, because they continue to change. The food pantry is announcing changes to their programs, and the community supper as well. So as the situation evolves, our local service providers are adapting and continuing to find ways to provide services to our group, to our residents, and our team, including Laura Ducharme and all the human services staff, are doing a great job of interacting with all of them and continuing to find ways to help our residents. And it's going to, as you mentioned, I think the needs are going to increase substantially as this continues.
And now Calvary, you can drive up and get dinner there Wednesday night. They'll hand it to you.
Yeah, Greed indicated to me that the, food pantry is well stocked, and she anticipates that will continue, and so that's good, but we'll keep our eyes open.
Okay. Meeting minutes.
This is the consent item.
Yeah.
Well, was there anything under item 4, discuss federal and state directives related to COVID-19? I believe that was your item, or have we covered that?
Yeah, that was covered mostly with the federal discussion earlier, and I think that was just a placeholder for what might have happened at the state level. I think we've already talked about most of those things, which are just continuations of existing orders at this point.
Then I would move that we approve consent item 5, which are the meeting minutes for our March 17 and March 24, 2020 meetings.
Is there a second?
Second.
David seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion?
Move to adjourn?
Well, I think we should discuss when we're going to schedule the next meeting.
Okay.
Are we going to have one
Friday?
Friday, which could have an open session component to it?
John, I think this is the executive meeting executive session that Lisa sounded us out about for Friday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yes, it's already been posted. We just
Okay.
posted it just to meet the 48 hours. We can hold it virtually, as you just decided to, and that'll give us a deadline to figure out how to do it.
I was wondering if maybe you wanted to quickly repost it and add an item for COVID-19 discussion, just in case something comes up between now and then, in open session. So if we exit back to open session, we can discuss anything that's come up in the meantime.
We're still ahead of the 48-hour window. I think it's at 9 o'clock, so we have up until 8:55 tomorrow to modify the agenda without running astray. So whatever the board decides, we'll do them in the morning.
And did you want to set a time to meet next Tuesday evening?
Yeah, I think that's okay. The open meeting on Friday, the Board of Health is meeting Thursday night, so we can always schedule it, and if there aren't, no new issues come up, we don't have to have much of a discussion, but Tuesday's probably a good idea too, I would think. We can always cancel it if we think we need to.
Yeah, I agree. The Board of Health is already posted for Monday as well. So, and we used to conflict with them, but I think it's good policy now not to conflict with them.
So let's go ahead with a meeting next Tuesday night, which would be I think the 7th.
That would be good.
Let me ask this question also before we adjourn. What about we never rescheduled the town meeting, so, we scheduled the election for June 2nd, but I don't think we scheduled town meeting, did we?
No, I think we were waiting
Holding.
not to take any action on scheduling it until, we were waiting for, there was, if you remember, there was state legislation that was filed on town, on town meetings before the election legislation, but they dealt with the election legislation first. Nina had reported they haven't gotten around yet to the town meeting legislation, given that we have until, the end of June and see how that plays. I think the two significant features of that legislation were the ability, if the crisis continued, that town meeting could be held after July 1, and towns could function financially at the same level they're doing in the current year. And I don't know whether that's going to come to pass, but I think our strategy from the last time was let's play it a little while longer and, see if it's easier to hold an election, I think, than to hold a town meeting.
John?
I'm hearing that the Senate may have may finalize their thinking on the legislation that was put forward last week or recently on this issue. So we may have answers tomorrow from the Senate on that new legislation, which we could discuss Friday or Tuesday at a regular night.
David?
I would propose that we wait until early May to make this decision, to see whether the crisis is abating, and if it is, then maybe we can schedule the town meeting for the end of June. If it doesn't seem to be abating, and then we maybe would want to use the capabilities in this legislation, whatever they turn out to be in the final bill, to having a town meeting at the end of the summer or something like that. But I would propose we wait until May. The models have us being past peak, the United States. I don't know about Massachusetts, but the United States being past peak in early May.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And just to remind people, part of that legislation to allow us to reschedule the election provided for mail-in early voting, also expanded the definition of what an absentee ballot is, so to include this crisis. So hopefully as many people as possible will just get, I don't think it's set up yet on the town website, but at some point Eva will be setting it up, and hopefully as many people as possible before June 2nd will just mail in early voting ballots rather than actually show up to vote in order to keep down the social contact that would come with the election. So,
David?
Sorry, just so everybody knows, it's a very simple form you can print off the website, and then I think that the town clerk will take it in fax form or postal mail form. Everybody in my house, we just put our forms in one envelope and we mail it to the clerk's office.
Is that an application to vote by mail?
Yeah, application to get an absentee ballot sent to you.
So it's both, because they're two different mechanisms.
Well, this mechanism is to have an absentee ballot sent to you.
Okay, but I think the question Peter was talking about was absentee ballot is one way to vote. A second way to vote is a mail-in vote, which is...
The absentee ballot is a mail-in vote. So absentee ballot is always a mail-in vote. You could also vote early, which is a little bit different, but there's a pretty subtle difference between those two. I don't think it matters much to the public which one you choose. It doesn't.
But you would agree that there are two different mechanisms to vote. One is the traditional absentee ballot,
which is
where you have to have a reason to request it.
Yes.
Where with the mail-in vote, you don't need a reason. Just say, send me a mail-in.
Well, absentee ballot is mail-in. There used to be early voting. You would go to the clerk's office and early vote. Or in some cases, the clerk had early voting sessions, like this past one, for the primary, the big Super Tuesday primary. But but absentee ballots always mail in. Great.
But, no, I think, Peter, might you add something to this? Because I think they're two distinct forms of voting.
Yeah, there are two ways. So you can early vote, which you don't need any reason, like you say, and you just get the form, clerk, send it to the clerk, I think by email or fax. The clerk will send you the early voting package, you fill it out and send it back. And I think you can even do that by email too, or fax. And then there's absentee balloting. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, there isn't much difference, frankly, but for absentee balloting, you do need a reason, but they've now, in this legislation, added to the reasons the fact that you're concerned about going out in public because of the pandemic.
Yeah. One of the reasons to request an absentee ballot is physically unable to make it to the polls, which they've included now they've expanded to include the COVID-19 circumstance.
So I was trying not to confuse things here, right? The fact of the matter is that there's no difference anymore between these two, right? It used to be early voting was in person, early, you didn't need a reason. Absentee balloting was by mail, you needed a reason. Now, they're both by mail, and neither do you need a reason. There is a subtle distinction between them, but it's almost, there's almost no reason to point it out, right? They're basically the same. Just send the clerk the form, the clerk will send you a ballot, you fill it out, you mail it back.
Okay. Dean?
Madam Chair, I just got another text from another constituent. Apparently there's a grassroots effort that's been getting going to recognize our first responders and medical personnel. And I guess the way this is working, and it's based on a short text that I got, they're asking for everybody to get out in front of your house at 7 o'clock on Friday night and applaud. So I'll just pass that along.
Yeah, they've been doing that in New York City.
I guess it's come here now.
All right, motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion?
Point of order, I think it was made, not seconded. Someone needs the second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.